Hey, Titus.
Hi, how are you?
Hey.
I'm great. I'm great. I'm Gil Robertson. We met briefly when you came to our lunch in Toronto
Yep, I remember.
for Dolomite. So it's so great to see you again.
Likewise, brother. Likewise.
And we are here to talk about all things Titus.
Oh, Lord.
And of course, starting with and centering around your current Netflix series.
Yes.
So I'm going to start off by introducing you to the members of AFCA.
Okay.
We have Katia in Philadelphia.
Hi, Titus.
Hi, and I love that hair.
We have Mercedes in Pittsburgh.
Hi, Titus.
I love that.
We have the curvy film critic, Carla Renata in Los Angeles.
Hey.
We have Anthony Johnson, Brother Anthony in Texas.
What's up?
We
How are
have
you doing?
Mr. Reginald Pounder in Chicago.
Pardon me.
And we have Ray Cornelius in Atlanta. And Albert McGee in Florida, South Florida.
Hello.
And Rhonda Penrice
Hi.
also in Atlanta. And we also have the voice of God, whose name says Gil Robertson, but he handles the board, AFCA member Ed Adams. So
Got it.
we're going to jump into this. We have a full house. We're ready to have some fun. Thank you so much again for your time. And let's do it, you guys.
Hi, Titus. Katia Witia out of Philadelphia. Okay, what I love about your character with the same name, Nkemi, is that he makes no qualm about that he loves his luxuries. That he's not about to be back in economy plus or any of that. How much were you able to put into the character? How much leeway are you given to just be as over the top and fun as you want to be?
Tina Fey and Robert Carlock are very generous collaborators, but they're very meticulous writers. So you say what they write. So none of what you see on screen is improv, not one word. And if you miss a dangling participle, you're going to go back and pick it up. As far as how much of my natural essence or whatever is poured into the man, for me, a lot of the costumes informed it, and a lot of my aunties informed who he was, and then my own personal struggle with trying to find a job in the gap from my last appearance on Broadway in 2009 to 2014 when I got the part. I was living in a basement apartment in Harlem trying to get a theater gig, which is exactly what The Breakdown said, but I'll tell you that story later. A lot of my personal experiences I pull from, but the sort of ebullience and sort of unapologetic Titus Andromedon-ness was sort of inherent in the writing.
Thank you.
Of course.
Well, hello, Titus. This is Al McGee. And it's great to see you again. I interviewed you for the Dolomite line in LA last year, and you were very nice and very informative. So my question is about the current series you're in now, Unbreakable. I really love that character you have. You play Titus Andromeda. Now, they came back and did this one segment, the interactive part. Did you all have to shoot 2 segments or 3 segments? Because when you ask the people to make a choice of what to do, did y'all have to act out all those choices?
Right. We shot that interactive special over, I believe, 32 days, which was damn near killed me. It was a great deal of work, and what was most confusing was that the scenes were just enough similar that you at least was able to track where you were generally in the story, but they were just enough different because, to your question, we had to film at least 3 different versions of the same thing to allow for all the possible outcomes. It's like putting a big ass puzzle together. So the answer to your question is yes. And oftentimes I found myself in a completely different scene than my scene partner, but we both thought we was in the same scene because we were both confused as fuck as to where we were. So yes, we had to film several different versions.
Hi, Titus. This is Reggie.
Thank you.
Hi, Titus. This is Reggie Ponder, the real critic out of Chicago. My question is that you get to use your comedic skills, your dramatic skills, your voice. Is this one of those roles to kind of like die for because you get to use so much of the talents that you have?
It's an embarrassment of riches. When I moved to New York, my sole desire was to be a Broadway star. I didn't give a fuck about TV or film and had no aspirations to do either. And something happened around my last Broadway show, and me and theater were in couples therapy, if you will. And what I got out of that was I felt I wanted to flex a different muscle. And so, you know, I prayed and waited and waited. And part of the reason why I felt such a disconnect from theater at that time was because it wasn't making use of my full facility. It only wanted me to come and stop the show, sing a big high note, and then leave, and then you wouldn't see me for the rest of the play. And so, you know, having creative minds like Tina Fey and Robert Carlock, who admitted that at the time they didn't even know that I was a theater kid, you know, so it wasn't until the series started that I think her assistant brought her a video clip of me performing on Broadway. And it sort of began to inform her of more fully of what I was capable of doing. And as the show unfurled, more about me and my skill set began to show up in the role of Titus. So the answer to your question is yes, ma'am. I don't know. I know that I will play many other parts, and you know, I'm looking forward to, you know, giving voice to all the people who were up here, but you know, having that be my first series regular and my introduction into Hollywood, it does not go lost on me, and it's not, I think about it every single day. And I was very, very lucky to have been cast, and that it was so well written, and that they treated this gay man and gave him such a beautiful arc, because oftentimes in recent Hollywood history, queer people were just the butt of the joke. We weren't making the jokes, you know, and they ended up giving him so much humanity and grounding him in such a way so that he wasn't out just out there just cooning, you know. So it was one of the greatest joys of my career.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
My name is Mercedes from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I just wanted to say thank you for all the work that you've done on Kimmy. Been a fan since the beginning. It's one of the only GIFs that I sent to my friend is from Titus, and I don't even respond in text anymore. It's just Titus GIFs, the whole text message, until I eventually say ignore this, which is my favorite GIF. But I wanted to switch gears a little bit and talk about your animation series on Apple TV. and your role is Cole. So I recently watched it with my 3 kids, and it seems like we all found different parts to laugh at and enjoy, which was also great because we can all watch it together. So what was it like kind of making that transition to animation? Do you see it as a stepping stone in your career, as some type of variety and diversity with your repertoire? How was it to go from on screen or Broadway to animation?
Sure. Thank you for that question. I'm not used to performing without people. In a way, animation was the first quarantine, I suppose, because no one's around, and they dial in and they're giving you direction, and you're offering up 15 versions of the same line, just to the ether, so that they can cut and paste, and hopefully it matches with everyone else who's going to be in the scene with you, albeit animated. So that took a lot of recalibration. So because I rely so heavily off of my scene partners and the listening and the receiving of information, because that governs how you respond. So that was weird, but I'm so proud of this piece. I don't know that I see it as like a career detour. I look at every project as its own sort of planet, and the whole solar system is kind of what my career is, and they all have their own special thing, and some planets can have life inhabited, and some are there just to be pretty. So I don't look at it as something I'm like focusing on, although we've already gotten greenlit for season 2 and have begun to, we were greenlit before season 1 premiered, and they sent us equipment to our home. So we started recording season 2 already. But it is something I find, or at least playing the role of Cole, I find titillating. Part of me still feels like a kid. I still feel like I'm learning. I still feel like I know absolutely nothing about life, particularly in this ever evolving climate that we are in. And it's nice to see, even though it's animated, and up and running New York, and to see the show give a nod to all the things that New Yorkers at heart know New York to be. And I love that it's something that entire families can watch, because there are jokes that are so up here for the intellectuals, for the adults, and then there are jokes that are, I call it low-hanging fruit, that the kids will laugh at, and no one's embarrassed at a certain section of it to be watching it with your parents, and you can all just put it on and enjoy it. And there are genuinely not a lot of programming out there. There's not a lot of programming that truly is family friendly. So I'm glad that you're able to enjoy that with your kids.
Thank you.
Of course.
Hey Titus, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing? Oh, I remember.
I'm doing good. Stop. Let's be professional. Cut it out. Okay. Cut it out. All right. So I want to know 2 things. What makes you unbreakable as a out, proud Black man in Hollywood, on Broadway, in the entertainment industry, period, because we are celebrating Pride Month this month? And secondly, what's your favorite Pinot Noir?
Oh, man. Thank you for that question.
You're welcome.
Ooh, there's so much that goes into being unbreakable. People think of being unbreakable as being impenetrable. I do not see it that way. I think the epicenter of being unbreakable is to be malleable. And being malleable is a must when you are in an industry that is constantly changing its mind, tossing and turning, deciding you're it one day and you are not the next day. And if you are not centered, and if you don't know who your source is, I know who my source is, and I know who my maker is. And I am able to go out and be who I am because I know whose I am. My favorite Pinot Noir is exactly what Pinot Noir means.
You ain't right. You are not right. Thank you.
You're welcome, sis.
Hi, Titus. This is Ray from Atlanta, Georgia.
Hi, from Georgia. Give it a big hug from me.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. First of all, I want to say I've been watching your career for quite some time now, and just so proud of all that you've accomplished, from the Broadway work, from the constant television work, and now we're seeing you on the big screen. So kudos and congratulations for that. You're going to be starring as the iconic James Cleveland in the upcoming biopic about Aretha Franklin, Respect. What was that like? Is that sort of I mean, he's so iconic. He's one of those that we've just not really heard his story. And so to be able to bring him to the big screen, what was that experience like? And what was it like working with Jennifer Hudson?
Mm-hmm. Let me start from the end and work my way backwards. I had never worked with Jennifer Hudson before. And I realized upon meeting her that I was a victim of doing to her the same thing that I hate for people to do to me, which is to compartmentalize them and say that, oh, they do this thing just because you've seen so much of it. I think this woman is going to win another Oscar, if not at least be nominated for the Academy Award, because her performance is so staggering and stunning. And she is, she's a lifetime student. She just wants to learn. And we became quite close during filming, and we call each other and text each other all the time. And we're both going through a situation, and I've relied heavily on her ear, and I'd like to think it's been the inverse as well. So it was wonderful working with her. When I was 12, I began directing the choir at my church. It's a long story how I got there, but you know, imagine this kid telling all these grown-ass black folks what to do, and it didn't bode well, but they sounded amazing. And one of the, so my knowledge of gospel music stops at about the year 2003 and goes backwards. Because when I moved to New York, I no longer had a car. Having a car was the only way I knew what was current on the radio. And so any of the new kids, I don't know anything about. And one of the anthologies, one of the catalogs that I would place onto my choir was that the Reverend Dr. James Cleveland. And one could say, well, Titus, at 12 years old, how did you have the wherewithal to do that? That's because of my grandmother, who listened to him faithfully, had his albums, and listened to many of his sermons. So this man's legacy and his compositional skills and his musical influence was already in my DNA. So finding him was not problematic, and I was able to talk to his daughter, and she gave me her blessing and some wonderful insight into who the man was, out of the spotlight, out of the limelight. She said she never wanted for nothing. She wished she got a chance to saw more of him. She said he was funny, he was generous, and so I wanted to bring that to the role. And my own way of feeling that Dr. Cleveland sort of blessed me was, I don't know how this happened, and no one on set knew it until I told them, but my very first day of filming was his birthday, December 5th. Yeah. So this is probably, I'm so proud of this movie. I don't know how it'll be cut together. It was directed brilliantly by Liesl Tommy, but it is such a beautiful tribute to Aretha Franklin and to the legacy of Dr. James Cleveland. And he was more than just Aretha's musical mentor. He was her best friend. And she relied on him for many different things and many different versions of strength, not just their shared faith in God.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much, and congratulations.
Of course.
Hi, this is Rhonda. I didn't realize that you were from Athens.
Yes.
So being from Athens, when did you get the freedom to be who you fully are? Like,
I came out the womb like this, and I would love to. I don't know. I've always felt other. I'm an only child, so I didn't have anybody to compare myself to. I have a slew of first cousins. I grew up on a farm, so from 1 year, or from the time I was born until about 8 years old, I was on a farm taking slop to the hogs and gathering the chickens. For the eggs from the chickens. And my grandmother and my granddad would have me out in the field. There were acres and acres and acres and acres of corn rows and collard greens and watermelons and you name it. And in my solitude, I only had me to entertain me. I didn't have vocabulary for the otherness that I felt, that I now call Titus. But I leaned into it because I was all that I had. Coming out to people, or actually I never really formally came out to anybody. I didn't have a problem being myself. It was every fucking body else who had a goddamn problem, and still have a problem, because people don't like people who are fully formed and know exactly who they are. And so, once I realized that I wasn't the one that was other, that everyone else was living in a host body and not being who they are, then I took the charge and said, I'm going to lean into who this man is and become the zenith, the epicenter of my isness. So it was from day one.
Thank you. I know about that slop life too in those waters.
And the barn and the house is still there. It's on Highway 78. I'll send you pictures if you want.
I will look for it the next time. I was in Athens a few weeks ago.
All right, on. Head right down 78. And once you get just into Lexington, is a big white house with a tin roof on your right-hand side if you headed down 78.
Okay, a tin roof. My grandfather, when his house burned down, he put a tin roof back on it. My uncle was so mad.
No, because I'll tell you why. The rain doesn't sound as good if it's not a tin roof. That rain on a tin roof, oh, hypnotic, I'm telling you. So he did the right thing.
Hi, Titus. Anthony Johnson here, the movie brother. How are you?
I'm wonderful, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great, great. First and foremost, I want to say I loved you, and Dolomite is my name, so congratulations on that.
Thank
great
you.
job. So
I honestly can't believe I got nominated for an NAACP Image Award for that role. I was scared as fuck to be in that movie with all of those giants. So I just, if anyone from the voting academy that is NAACP, thank you. But I feel like my performance was full of nerves. I don't know what else they saw. But whatever, thanks.
Whatever it was, it worked. So two-part question for you. One, right, with this new animated series coming out, right, you're playing this character, Cole.
Yeah.
How do you normally prepare, right, for roles, characters that you portray? And was that any different in preparation for this animated character, Cole? That's part one. Part two is, right, you mentioned earlier feeling like a kid, right, in doing this show. Did you watch cartoons as a kid, animated shows? If so, what were some of your favorites?
I didn't spend a lot of time watching cartoons. I kind of watched whatever my grandparents are watching, which at the time they had two channels. It was ABC or was it CBS? It was either CBS or ABC, and the other one was PBS, and they had a wire hanger for the antenna. So it was either the news or her stories, and then it was Sesame Street or Mr. Rogers, as it was on PBS. As it relates to how I prepared, well, it does differ than me preparing for something that is on camera, because for animation, it doesn't really matter what you got prepared to do. You're going to do what they tell you so they can edit it together, particularly because you don't know the type of performance someone else is going to give. So I would say, you know, you have a lot of freedom to play around with the voice or inflections and such, but the story's going to say the story, and the animators, it takes a long time to animate. So, you know, you don't have a whole lot of wiggle room to go changing stuff up. So preparation, I mean, you read the script so you know what the fuck you're talking about, but you go in there and you say what they tell you to say. So that is how it differs versus getting the script, you know, coming to set with, you know, some sort of trajectory in mind, but also you can't be too fully formed, because then that means you've decided what your performance is independent of who's in the scene with you. And that ain't no good. Who wants to watch that? Then you might as well do a one-man show if you're gonna do that. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Of course, man.
Hi, Titus, Kathy again. Can we talk about Cole, who I love in Central Park? I'm just gonna say this. As soon as I heard your voice, like my face just lit up.
Oh,
and no, in a good way. Cole is a very unique young man, you know what I mean? Just how the series starts off, and he is looking to belong, and he's looking to have someone belong to him, but he's not quite sure how to go about it. And, and he takes a lot of missteps, but somehow you can't help but root for him, even though you're like, I don't know about this, right?
Yeah.
When you read it, were you like, oh, I want to do this? Because this is just, you just can't help but root for him.
Yeah. It's kind of like being on a diet, but opening up your refrigerator and you know you're supposed to reach for that piece of fruit, but instead you reach for the slice of cheesecake, and you got razor sharp focus and no one can talk you out of it. Once your taste buds get set for that cheesecake, that's what you're gonna eat. And that's what I think about Cole. It's whatever he wakes up, whatever flavor is on his mind that day, whatever pet he is pining for that day. When you're 11, your attention span is in one direction. It's either video games or some other, you know, left of center situation, and you have to lean into that, you know. And I remember as an 11-year-old boy, all I wanted to do was rush through the chores so I could go to the back room of my grandma's house and play the piano. And I hate the day that I confessed my love for music, because that was then the way that they could punish me when I was failing on the job. They were like, well, you can't go back there and play on the piano if you don't get this, you know, done or whatever. So the point is, I had to lean into that sort of, I don't want to call it narrow-minded, but one-track mindness that some kids house.
Yay, did you get into season 2? Love Cole. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Titus, I have in my notes about the Reverend James Cleveland, because I was a good friend of his back in the day, and I knew him very well.
Are you serious?
Yes, very serious. I used to go to his house, his church, and everything.
Aww.
Knew his family. In fact, I met his niece at a fight, and I said, wow, I remember you as a little girl. She said, oh, she didn't remember me. But my question is about that. How did you audition for that part for James Cleveland? And was there other people too auditioning for James Cleveland? And did you ever get a chance to go to his church, to see his church while you was researching this part?
No, I didn't. When I was filming Respect, I was also preparing for my Carnegie Hall debut. And I sold it out, by the way. And so I had my hands full, and I was just coming off of press for Dolomite. So I did not have the opportunity, which is why I took the opportunity to talk to his daughter, at least to kind of get into it. And I read as many articles and watched as much footage of him just talking. You know, I knew the music, so I just wanted to, you know, you can tell a lot about a person by the cadence of their speech pattern or what their eye goes to and such. So, when I audition for something, I don't pay attention to other people. And as far as I'm concerned, no one else is auditioning for it except me. So I don't know and I don't care. All I'm concerned about is showing, and also I don't do a lot of auditioning. That was the one audition that I had to do because I had not, the studio was unwilling to hand it to me. And so I guess there were other people being considered, but as I said to the other brother, this man was in my DNA. There was no question in my mind that I was going to get this role. It felt, in fact, when my agent called me, they said they want to see you tomorrow. And I was like, tomorrow? And it was like a stack of scenes. And I'm like, and I was filming something else at the time that prevented me. What was I filming? I was filming something else that I was unable to commit the all-nighter to learning these scenes. And I called him, I was like, you know, can I self-tape or can I, you know, put this, do it the day after? And I'm like, well, the director won't be in town. Whatever. So I don't know, but, you know, my source fixed it and suddenly that schedule the next day of mine got canceled. But I didn't find out until that morning. And so my manager called me. She's like, guess what? You don't have to go in today, but can you still make a case, even not, you know, knowing? And I told her, sorry, just tell them that I'm not off script fully, but I'll come in. I had to play a song. I had to play, I think He's Got the Whole World in His Hands. And I did my own arrangement. I played piano and write music and all that stuff. And my degree's in music, so that was easy. And while I was sitting down in the waiting room, it seemed like the office got so busy and like there were kids everywhere, and that was pissing me off because they were so loud and their parents were not doing anything to make them be quiet. But some kind of way, y'all, those pages and pages of dialogue, like it was like osmosis. And I went in there completely off book and got the call a couple of days later that I had landed the role. And I feel so honor doesn't quite do it justice. It doesn't seem to have enough gravity or majesty to really articulate the influences man had in my life and in my early upbringing, and how his sonic aesthetic shaped how I see the world and my relationship to music. So, you know, I can only hope that I brought him to life with dignity and honor and made a compelling case for him. But, you know, also just to tell the world, you know, just how much of an influence he had on our dear Queen of Soul. And were it not for her formative years with him as her teacher, we wouldn't have the noise that we know as the glorious sound of Aretha Franklin.
Wow, thank you very much. And I see your DNA in him or in you. And I'm so excited to see you when you perform it on film. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Of course, of course, of course.
Okay, hi, it's Rhonda again. Listening to you, your stories regarding your upbringing and your grandparents are so delightful. Are you planning to do anything with that? I think I would love to see this.
Huh. Sorry, I get really emotional when I talk about my grandma. Well, part of my Carnegie Hall performance was about her and Stephen Sondheim, and that's a whole other thing. I guess the answer to your question is, I think some kind of way I am waiting for her to give it to me. I know it is sitting there. I've not yet figured out what it is, because it's more than just a, let me tell you how I grew up. I have to figure out how to properly frame it so that when I do give it to the world, I don't know if it's music or a play or a series or a miniseries or however it decides to manifest, whenever it decides to manifest, it has to have the gravity to make you as speechless as your question about her made me speechless. So I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, I hope so, because I mean, this has been very delightful, and I just know that it would be wonderful.
Thank you.
Hey, Titus, this is Carla
Yes.
again. You all right, baby?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to find out, what was the conversation like between you and Josh Gad when he told you Leslie Odom Jr. was going to be playing your daddy?
You are so, you don't need to be on this panel.
Ask your question. Stop.
Okay, so so Josh Gad, I was on Twitter and then got off just because social media becomes another full-time job, and so I was just about to delete my account, and I realized that you can like DM people on Twitter. This was when I was living in Harlem, like at least 4 years ago. And so I looked and I saw I had a message from Josh Gad. He had DM'd me. And he's like, hey man, I know this is kind of strange, but I'm doing this pilot for Fox for an animated series, and there's a role in it that I think you would be right for. Or are you interested? And I'm like, Josh, why don't you just fucking call my agent? Like, or, you know, like everyone else does. Like, come on, man. But also, I respect the shit out of him. So I was like, yeah, sure. You know, he admitted that it wasn't like fully formed yet. And then it wasn't until the day that we began to not record the pilot, because the deal wasn't even in place, but it was sort of us talking through the material. And he's like, you know, by the way, Leslie's playing your dad. I didn't know Leslie for almost 16 years now. So Leslie replaced me. Okay, so I was in the original cast of Jersey Boys, and we did our out-of-town tryout at La Jolla Playhouse. And Leslie replaced me when I left to go make my Broadway debut, and he came in to do Jersey Boys. And he played my role. So that, and I met him in 2006. So I guess that would be almost 14 years now. Anyhow, so it just made me giggle because he and I keep following each other. But he's so wonderful in this role, and he is an actor with great versatility, and he's very thoughtful, and he puts a great deal of he tempers his performances, and I have great respect for him. So it was exciting. It just made me laugh because I'm like, I can't get away from this man. Nor do I want to. He's so stupid.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate you as a Broadway baby. I appreciate you making those inroads there as well. And good luck to you. And I'm looking so forward to respecting all the other projects you have coming down the pipe.
Thank you, baby. I love you.
I love you, Black.
Hey, Titus, this is Reggie Ponder out of Chicago again. I'm a little upset that you're giving all Atlanta all this love and not Chicago, but you and I have to talk about that later.
Jay, my sis, she's from Chicago, so I can be a surrogate brother, right?
All right,
Okay.
good. Now we good. I was a little, I was getting a little emotional. You can answer either one of these questions.
Okay.
What song you writing right now that we gotta hear, or have you made up with your ex-significant other, meaning Broadway?
I'll answer both. I just released a single called Dance Motherfucker, or it's actually called Dance MF. I used to get in trouble for talking so much in grade school and cussing, and I don't know where. I guess I picked it up from my granddaddy. Anyway, but so it's streaming everywhere, and I'll tell you a little bit about that song. It's not just a dance track, but I wrote, last fall, I was having a very, very dark period, and my emotional and mental state was under siege. And I was in and out of therapy, and so I wrote a letter to myself, and I lifted the letter that I wrote to myself and put it in the verses of Dance MF. And I wrote the song with a guy named Dan Edinburgh and a young lady named Imani Coppola. And I wrote it, it was really just for me. I had no intentions of releasing it into the dance world. And it was a way for me to exorcise all of my demons. And it has been lifting me. And I thought, well, if this is doing this for me, let me give it to the world, and maybe some other people can use it. And we can't go anywhere. And so I just put it on the dance throughout the house. So the world needs to hear that right now. So go to Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, whatever YouTube, however you consume your streaming music, and you'll find it. I just released it on a week ago last Friday. I have reconciled my relationship with Broadway. We ended up not getting divorced. We just separated temporarily. And as many people know, I own bought the rights to The Preacher's Wife. So, and we are in the final stages of negotiations with our producer, who is, I will let him make the big announcement, but he produced Once on This Island, Inheritance, Hadestown. So he's a big one, and we'll be making an announcement soon, I hope, about plans once we all know what our beloved Broadway, how that's going to look when we come back to life, and how we're going to resuscitate and change that model. But I suspect that commercial production of The Preacher's Wife will happen in the near new future. So it is on track.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to that. And I just didn't hear any notes come out of your mouth about the song, but maybe it was just me. I'm sorry.
Guns in the guts, I'm not worn out. I'm not going to do this myself.
I mean, Titus, do you want to give us a snippet?
Of which one? Of what?
Of the song.
I'll give you a snippet of the finale of The Preacher's Wife. Let's see. If you hold on, help is on the way. If your prayers are strong, change will come what may. If you believe it, you will receive it. Oh, hold on, help is on the way. Oh yeah, hold on, help is on the way. That's enough.
Now you're trying to get church started up in here. You know what? For our final question, two things. We just started Pride Month. You know, the image is such a powerful thing. The people that we see in media. What does this month represent to you, and what do you hope it represents to the next generation of young LGBTQ coming up?
This might, I hope people listen to this whole statement before they get ready to pounce. you know, like some white people say they don't feel equipped to speak to or talk about the Black experience, even though sidebar, white people, we don't need you to understand our experience. Just stand with us and call the police when you see us getting hurt. Treat us like we're white. That's the quickest way to do that. Anyways, I also, because I did not have the experience coming out that some other people had, and some other people have terrible, horrid experiences coming out. This month, to me, is about the sort of sigh of relief and release one should feel taking full ownership and inhabiting the space that they take up on Earth. I don't give a fuck about a flag. Every month is Pride for me. And, you know, I want my young sisters and brothers in the queer community to walk around with their heads held high. There is such a wealth of information that has been withheld from particularly the Black queer community about our contribution to the LGBTQ community. And had I known at an earlier age, I think my purview of the world would be different. I don't think it would have changed how I feel about myself, but it would change how I saw the world and what I would have believed was in the realm of possibility. So this month, you know, walk around like you own the fucking place and know that everything is within the realm of possibility.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you. And yeah, we're here to support you. So
I appreciate it.
We definitely are looking forward to, you know, helping to spread word about this project and everything else that you have in your canon. On behalf of the members of the African American Film Critics Association, thank you and stay safe, and we'll see you soon.
I hope so. Bye, you guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course,
Thank
of course. Of course. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.